I'm sorry, I can be easily distracted. Welcome. We'll talk a little bit more about the difference between achievement and growth. You probably have heard these terms before. You're going to hear more of them. What we found over the years is as much as we talk about the difference between achievement and growth, you would think people would get it and they understand it. It's not always the case. There's still a little bit of a log jam in people's minds as to the difference of those things. So hopefully we'll get that cleared up a little bit today. And anytime you have a question about testing or data, feel free to shoot me an email. Emails always work better for me than a phone call because I may not always get to the phone call. And then if you leave a voicemail, I really will not listen to your voicemail. That doesn't mean I won't return your call. I will return your call. I don't like to hit that play button to listen to the voicemail. I try to make sense of what's actually written down. You know how you guys have all seen these, right? Everybody's got voicemails, and you know, I wish I could remember all the different ways that the interpreter has said my name. It's made up different things. But, so instead of just even attempting to read those things or listen to voicemail, I usually just go ahead and reply back with an email. How can I help you? Or just make a call. Let me know how I can help you. So emails are always better. I think you can spell things out a little more clearly in your email, and then I can get you a directed answer back to you. As Mr. Chandler said, I am the supervisor for testing, assessment, and homebound students. So I'll just make this little plug for homebound. If you've got any kids that go on homebound, that's coming through my office, and my secretary does a great job of kind of coordinating and working with those students. And we have 3 homebound teachers on staff that work with our district students that are not able to come to school for whatever reason. Not all of our homebound students are out of school because of what you might think of. We have kids, we've got homebound students in kindergarten, we've got homebound students that are 22 years old. Right? We've got incarcerated students that one of our homebound teachers services at the jail, because according to IDEA, you know, if a student is or a person is up to 21, 22, if they request services, they're served. So we serve students at the jail that have been incarcerated and they request services, and so we do that have long been gone out of your school. We lose a kid from homebound. When I say lose a kid, they pass on once every year or 2 years. So there's just some heartbreaking cases there. So please be patient with your homebound people, your teachers. If they request information from you, get that information to them because they really. When I tell you how many students they have, like their caseload, you think, oh my word, I'm sitting here with 30 or whatever. But they have to service each of these students 3 hours a week. But 3 hours, they've got to travel, they've got to pick up stuff, emailing materials back and forth. So they've got full loads. We always have to bring in somebody during the school year on contract to help with homebound. Because the loads are so high. So they really don't have time to banter back and forth and request information over and over and over again. So just letting you know, please, when you get a homebound request, to go ahead and push that through and give them what they need, because if that doesn't happen after several emails that I call the principal and whatnot, and so we just want to avoid those things, right? In terms of testing, my job is the testing coordinator. I am in charge. I'm charged by the state to maintain the fidelity of the test. And you know, I can be serious in my job. I need to be serious in that job because it's fair to you, all right, that everybody does it the same way. Because the stakes are high. The stakes are not only high for the students as they take the test. We know that they are high for you as a teacher and your evaluations, right? And so we do take test security, maintaining the fidelity of the test very seriously. Nobody's running around looking for people to mess up, and we don't expect people. You know, I don't approach testing from the standpoint of, oh, I know they're out there cheating, I'm going to catch them. That's not how I approach it. We want to maintain that everybody is doing what they're supposed to do and they're following the directions of the test, the directions of the testing coordinator. I will tell you this one thing, and please listen here and do this, all right? When your testing coordinator at your school, how many of you know who your testing coordinator is at your school? Okay, the rest of you are going to figure that out tomorrow, right? Ask your principal, hey, who's our testing coordinator? Who do I need to go to for test questions, all right? So find out who your testing coordinator is at your school. When your testing coordinator gives you instructions on how to implement the test, what to do and what not to do, that's not up for interpretation on your part or another teacher that's been there for 20 years. It's not up for interpretation on their part. So the advice that I give you is listen to your testing coordinator. I promise you, you will have people that come and say, yeah, she's saying that, but don't really, you can do this or that. Do not do that. That will back you up into trouble faster than anything, okay? So follow the directions in the test administration manual, what your testing coordinator says. If you see that there's some conflict in there, ask them, feel free to shoot me an email, and we'll get it taken care of. But it's better to do that than just go ask somebody that's not directly involved in testing. They may be your mentor teacher. That doesn't mean that they are correct in the test process. And I just tell you, it's not necessarily that the teacher's going to try to, work around the system. The test procedures change. There's changes to the testing every year and different aspects of it. So the people that are most up to date on those are your test coordinators and backup coordinators at your school. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and look at some of this data and interpreting some data. I do have this site. This is for the TVAAS site. How many of you have ever actually seen the TVAAS site before? If you've taught another system, I'm sure you have. If you've been in some in-service at your school, I'm pretty sure you have as well. But the TVAAS site, I should have put that actually up here. I'll log out of this. I have everything. This is just me. I'm not an organized person. All right, I'll just share that with you right now. But the one thing that I am very proud of doing this, I feel is fairly organized, is all these different sites that I go to and frequently are up here. There are hot buttons up here. Okay, so the Jackson Madison County School System Tools site, I could click on that and that'll get me to all these other sites. And so they're just hot buttons that I can get to without having to type in something to Google. And so if I click up, where you can't see what I'm doing, way up there you go, on the favorites, okay, then I can add whatever site I'm at to my favorites bar, and that's what that's called across the top. So the TVAAS site is in one of my favorites. So I'm going to go here and I'm just going to type in that username. And this is a generic username that I've developed for the system. And I'll type it in correctly. Training3, training.training3. The password is capital JMCSS, that's all uppercase, at, then all lowercase JMCSS. And I'll sign in. Please do not change that. Okay? Do not change that. But that will get you into the system's data. Most of you do not have a TVAAS account. If you came in from another system, or this is your second year, and you've got value-added data, you should have a TVAAS account. But if this is your first year teaching, you probably do not. I cannot set up, well, I shouldn't say that. I can set up a TVAAS account for you, all right, which will allow you to get into the system data, and you can look up your school's data and different things like that. However, when you test at the end of the year, this summer when your scores come in, you will not be able to see your value-added data. The only way you can see your value-added data is if you are set up as a user by a school. Okay, you can't be a system-level user, which is how I would set you up. You got to be set up as a system-level user. System-level users are set up by your administration. The principal at your school has the authority to do that, and they have the site rights to set you up as a school user. Most of them have passed that on to either an assistant principal, a testing coordinator, a consulting teacher, maybe something like that. But your administration can help you develop a username and password so that you can just get your school data and you don't have to worry about all the other stuff. At this point, that's all you really need. You just need your school level identification and rights to get into the site, because at this point, all the students from your school are now loaded into the TVAAS site, whether they tested at your school last year or not. All right, so the state, you don't really care about any of this, but all that student management system stuff that we're doing with Power Schools, the state pulls information out of there every month, okay? Actually, 3 or 4 times a week, but for the TVAAS site and other things, they pull out once a month, and then they transfer all this over into the TVAAS site. So as the school year goes and kids withdraw from your school or enroll in your school, you're going to see those students change on the TVAAS site towards the end of each month as the state pulls the information in and out of the student management system. So you can pull up the TVAAS site, and there's a wealth of reports that are on there. Okay? Before we get into that, let's go ahead and look here. You know, I've got this thing. I might as well scroll through it. Just
Can you tell me the name of that website? Was it just
yeah, that's why I actually got on there in the first place, just so I could show you, and then I didn't even do that. The nerve. Let's see. I'll log out. TVAAS.SAS. If you Google that, it'll just pull up. There's also a link on the Tennessee Department of Education website. If you go to the Tennessee Department of Education website, you'll see if you enter data, school report cards, things like that, you'll see a link and it'll say public access or private access around some heading that says TVAAS, public access, private access. If you click on the private access, then that'll pull up this page and you can type in your username and password. If you type in public access, you're not going to see individual student data. Okay? All right, that's a good question. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I forgot my clicker on my desk. I was sharing with somebody that I've been out of the office so much in the last couple weeks, it's not getting any better. All right, so we're going to slip on through here. So we give different types of assessments. And all these assessments we can gather information on. Some of them we can use as summative, summative information, and others we can use as some formative information as to where to start the next year. The TCAP test that we gave in the spring is a summative assessment. However, many of you, your school encouraged you to use it, or they gave you some data, how your students did on the TCAP last year, and so that allows you a beginning point to figure out where they are going for this year. Okay? So you can use that information of where they ended the year to know how to begin the year. The first 9 weeks that you went through, hopefully you saw that information, you used some of it. You're in the middle of getting ThinkLink tests right now, and so you can see a progression. Hopefully you can make some type of progression of how the students move through there. So a formative assessment, those are assessments we give along the way to see how the student's progressing and doing. The summative assessments are the TCAP tests that we give at the end of the year, or the end of the 9 weeks. So these are just some of the assessments that we give for our formative assessments. We're given the ThinkLink test. CRA is, we can kind of use that as a formative thing. And unfortunately, sometimes these tests kind of overlap on top of each other. Our Our summative assessment is the TCAP, or the Tennessee Comprehensive Assessment Program, and that's all the way through third through 12th grade, actually. Students in 12th grade will take some end of course tests if they're enrolled in a junior level class or whatnot. But that's the TCAP program. Even our end of course tests are part of the TCAP comprehensive program there. Okay. All right. So the first test I want to talk to you about are the Thinking tests that you're giving right now. How many of you are done giving the Thinking at this point? So there are several schools that are done. Other schools are in the process, and they may be done next week. How many of you have seen the reports for your classes? All right, so you can probably share a wealth of stuff on this that I'm not sharing right now. But you'll get a report, and everybody gets all excited about these bars. We're all blue, or we're all green. We're all blue-green. Oh, we got too much red or yellow. Here's what I would say to you. This is the very first assessment, formative assessment we're giving this year, right? The ThinkLink test, as you give this thing, and you look at the questions, you probably gave some questions, or the students were asking questions that you haven't even covered this year. Did you notice that? All right. So I don't get. I'm a little different than some people. Your principal is going to be all about the blue and the green, right? They may or may not grasp the questions and what percent of the questions you've covered and what percent of the questions you've not covered, all right? So certainly you want to be transitioning people from the reds and the yellows into the blues or into the greens and into the blues as the school year goes on. I would use this first ThinkLink certainly as that starting point. Here's where my people are. I need to build walls of protection around students so they don't fall backwards, and I need to build little pushers behind kids. How can I push them to move forward, all right, into the other areas? But before as I start to look at these things, how many of you have looked at the item analysis breakdown of your ThinkLink? Okay? The actual test questions and how many students got this question right or missed this question. That's the very first place. When I was an instructional coach, that's the very first place I started with the ThinkLink test. I would get the question breakdown, the item analysis breakdown, and I would go through, and this back before it was on computer. Fortunately, you got it all computerized so you can see the percent this and that, and you can click on name or click on the stuff and you get all the names and all that. But I would go through and I would just start marking. I'd mark out the questions that weren't covered yet, because I knew what the teachers had covered in algebra or English and what they hadn't. And those questions that they hadn't covered yet, I didn't get jammed up, and I tried to get the teachers to relax being upset that so many kids miss those questions. Well, you haven't gotten there yet. It's okay, all right? Certainly make a note of it so that when you cover that topic, you're like, man, I had a whole bunch of kids miss this, so I need to make sure that I really hit that. Or, man, I hadn't even covered that, and 90% of my kids got that right. What does that tell me? How can I use that information? What's that? I don't need to spend a lot of time on it with everybody. What can I do with that? What would say that? I can take it further with those students that already got it. Man, that is a great thing to do. Taking it further with the students that you know already got it, because that increases their knowledge base, and that's going to increase their value score for you at the end of the year as well. So I don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time in there. I can take it further with those students that I feel already have it. That 10% of the students that missed it, I know I've got them targeted when I cover this section, and I'm going to make sure that I inundate them with the support and safety nets they need so that they can get that, all right, and can be successful in that area. So you can use that item analysis to really break down things that you haven't taught and give you a great direction as to where to go with those things. The things that you have taught already gives you a great guide as to what to back up on, okay? If you're not giving formative assessments along the way, not just ThinkLink, but just, hey, is my kid at the end of the day, in the middle of the class period, in this lesson, are they getting it, or are they not getting it? You need to be checking these things. So It's not at the end of the 9 weeks when you give the thank link, like, man, I really thought everybody had this from the second or third week of school. You gotta back all the way up to that for a bunch of kids. So you give formative assessments all along the way. You don't have to wait for these thank link tests to do that. All right, so this is a report that you will see because everybody loves the blue and the greens and we're all moving. This is, all right, so this is another report that you can see on the ThinkLink site. And basically, what's covered up, what's blacked out here are the students' names. Okay, so you see this for all your students. And I can see in math processes, this last student is yellow. So he's I've got warning signs for him for math processes in order of operations, or number of operations. He's blue, and he's getting some algebra and geometric measurement stuff there. Data analysis seems to be all right, but I might want to shore up that so I can move him all the way into blue. And then you can see where he is. So he's a level 3, he's green right now, and it tells you then how many questions he got right out of however many were on there, 30 maybe. So they got 19 out of 30, and they're green on that. But this kind of gives you the breakdown as to which different areas they need help on, right, or might need help on. And again, this is a site on the Discovery Ed site, excuse me, that you can look at and go to. Do you have usernames for the Discovery Ed site? Okay, if you don't have a username for the Discovery Ed site, do that. Go talk to your instructional coach to get that. This is an item analysis breakdown that I kind of was talking about, and this is just one way that they report it. You can look up and down. You can see, I think the one I saw recently hasn't gone across this way now. And it'll tell you the letter that's correct, and then for each question, it'll say, this was the correct answer, A, B, C. So many of your students answered A, which was incorrect. So 8% of them marked A as the incorrect answer. 30% of your students marked B as the incorrect answer, right? So as you look at some item analysis like this, you can say, okay, not only did I have X number of kids miss it, but I could really figure out, and you need to do this, and I'll show you one of these in just a second, where you can say, okay, not only did I have 30% of my kids miss it, or even 10% of my kids miss it, did they all miss it the same way? If the majority of your kids miss the question the same way, then there's just a little thought process that all those kids are messed up on, and if you can tweak that thought process and correct that one thing, then you're going to bring all those kids, or the vast majority of those kids, on board with you. All right? So really drilling down to individual questions and individual answers. This is where we are now. We got the capabilities to do it, and so it's just one of those things that we need to be looking at. This is just a list of the summative assessments we give. I'll just tell you, we gave, I don't think I did the ThinkLink as part of that last year. Not counting ThinkLink. So I calculated up last year for somebody else in the central office how many individual tests we administered last year, state mandated tests. Well, I don't even have the writing up there on this, okay, because that's not a summative assessment at this point. It will be next year for the writing. How many individual tests we gave, state mandated tests. So you're looking at Explore, Plan, ACT, all these, writing. The number was right around 43,000, 44,000 individual tests we administered last year. Okay, so we've got 13,000 students in the system. So every kid in the system, if you look at that, it's evened out. Every kid's doing 3.5 tests. Well, we know that not everybody's taking every one of those tests. So I realize we give a lot of tests. These are things that we just got to collect data on, and it's they're state mandated. These are not system mandated tests of the 43. The ThinkLink is something that we do as a system. We decide to do as a system so that that helps you gather some information as the school year goes along. What you see right here is a Jackson-Madison County school system proficient in advanced percentage of these different tests over the last 4 years. I just wanted to show you this so you can kind of see some trends as to what's going on. Our algebra, we stayed the same. I can't remember if we dropped. It was right about where we were last year, proficient in advanced in algebra. Over the last 4 years, we have increased. English 2, we dropped last year. We had an anomaly happen at one of our schools. When I say an anomaly, there was a significant decrease in proficient in advanced at one of our high schools last year, and that had many tests were not allowed. Just because a kid takes a test doesn't mean that it's going to take. And the state legislature said, especially for high schools, in particular for high schools, any kid that's in an EOC course, end of course test, and takes an end of course test, has to be instructed by a highly qualified, certified in that content instructor. And something happened, and like I said, at one of our high schools where a good number of those kids that would have scored advanced or proficient, their scores got nullified for system and school reporting because that wasn't the case. So I say that to you for this. If you own a provisional license or any license, it is your responsibility to maintain your license. And I've kind of moved into the HR thing, but please, it is your license is your responsibility. I've been in education now for a number of years, and never once have I had anybody in HR or an administrator or anything say, "Hey Scott, I think it's time for you to renew your license. Why don't you check on that?" All right? Because we're grown-ups, we're adults. Okay? You make your bed. Maybe, I don't know. But you take care of your stuff. My wife wasn't here to hear that. What are you talking about? I did make it the other day. No, I didn't. Monica's laughing. She doesn't know why. All right. So, it's your responsibility. Your license is your responsibility. So please maintain your license. It's your livelihood and job. You got to do that. All right. Certainly, one of the reasons why I show you this, these are certainly not where we want to be as a system, and you don't want to be there as a school. Some of the schools are lower and higher than this. I can show you the individual school stuff, but we're not going to take up your time for that. All your schools have graphs like this that are school specific if you want to see them. But having less than 40% of our students proficient in math, 3rd through 8th graders proficient in math and reading, is not where we want to be. And it's not where I want my kid to be if they were in school. It's not where you want your kid to be if they were in school. It's not where you as a school want to be. And it's certainly not the direction of the administrative teams within the system. So you're going to hear some different things about throughout this year, if you've not already, about raising those scores up and making the best opportunity of every opportunity, and each of those kids is an opportunity. And it's not just for your score, their score, the school score. It's that student's knowledge. Okay? It's about the kids. It really is. We're leaving, the 3rd grade. I can't remember the exact numbers, but how many of those kids leave 3rd grade and they're not proficient in math? Then what happens in 4th grade? ACT has got some statistics that say if a kid has a bad math experience 1 year, it takes them a year to year and a half to recover from that if they've got good teachers after that. If they have a bad math for 2 years, they may recover. May. 3 years in a row, never. Okay? And the last 2 days I've been kind of sitting in some math conferences, and that wasn't shared at the math conferences, but it's always resounding in my mind. Okay? Math. We need to be helping our students in the proficiency in reading and math. These are little soapbox I get on at times, and I apologize. You know, if you don't feel real confident in your math skills, grab a teacher by you or something. Because we want our students to be competent in math. And we want you to be competent in math too. Hey, there's all kinds of people that sit down with you and work with you on stuff too. And there's no shame in saying, hey, I need some math help. I need some math help. If I were to ask you, and I'm not going to do that right now, how many of you would say that you are proficient in math? You know, I know not everybody would raise their hand or stand up. All right, so we need to work on our own skills, and I know that you're doing that, and I appreciate you doing that because really it's important for the students as well. This is where we did on math for last year. This is, I can't remember what grade this is. I pulled this off of. It's 8th grade, I think. No, it's the overall 3rd through 8th for math. And you can see where we are in math over the last few years. And really, I show you this for a couple reasons. One of which is, here we're in these pretty colors again. Where green is always good. Just remember, green is good. Red, we want to move away from the red. But you can be in certain grades, and you can analyze things like this and say, man, we got some troubles in some grades. Why those are, school by school, we're looking at different things. But there's some good things going on too. All right? And let me share this with you. If I was a 7th grade teacher, this year, man, I just share with you, you can kill it. You can absolutely kill your value-added scores this year. All right? And the reason is because all that red in 6th grade. Okay? All that red. Last year read in 6th grade. So what that really is looking at and saying is this is growth. So we didn't get growth, got negative growth. Our 3-year average is negative. Last year was worse than the 3-year average. Negative growth. Now, how can a kid grow negative? Well, they didn't go backwards. They just didn't get to the mark that was set out there for them. Okay? So here's what the kid was predicted to be at. All right? This is how all the growth works out. Here's where the kid was predicted to be. The state says 0 is 1 year's growth. So if you get the kid and they get to where they're supposed to be, okay, that is 1 year's growth in an average classroom in Tennessee. If a kid comes into your room, you're a 6th grade teacher, and they come into your room ready for 6th grade, okay, then you're expected to have them ready for 7th grade at the end of that school year. That's 1 year. If you get them beyond that level, you get positive growth. If you only prepare them 6 3/4, then you're going to get some negative growth there because you didn't meet that 7th grade mark. If they come into your class at 5.5 grade, 5.5, 5.5, okay, at the end of their 6th grade year, so you're the 6th grade teacher from Mississippi. They came in, that 5th grade teacher didn't prepare them. They came into my room halfway through 5th grade at that level, all right? The state says, this is the way this works out, this is 1 year's growth. So by the end of the 6th grade year, you should get them to 6.5. 6.5. Now where are you going to get them? You want to get them to 7. Right? Because we don't want to keep holding the kid back. Right? So you want to move them to 7. So that's why I should, look at that. On average, the average growth for 6th grade, last year was -5. So we got a whole lot of 6th grade kids that didn't meet their mark. They didn't come into 6th grade ready for 6th grade. Or I'm sorry, they didn't come into 7th grade now ready for 7th grade. So as a 7th grade teacher, I got these kids that are starting behind the 7th grade line. Man, I'm going to kill it because I'll have them ready for 8th grade by the end of that time. I'm going to work my hiney off to get them ready for 8th grade. And guess what? You went beyond that 1 year that was expected of them and of you, and you got them further along. Your growth is going to be crazy big. It's going to be good. All right? So don't be discouraged when you see different things like that from the year before. Oh, this kid didn't do this or that. Go through, and we'll look at some individual student stuff here in just a second. And you say, oh man, that kid's got the ability to be here. And how do I know these kids have the ability to be up there? They've done it already. They've already did it. All right? So they can do it again. They can do that again. As I look at this, I should have brought a laser. But I'll travel through, and you can see 2011 fourth grade. 2011 fourth grade had an average growth 2.0. Okay? I moved down to fifth grade, 2012. Those are the same kids, right? Still growing. Sixth grade, 2013, had that big drop off. So if I look at this thing on the diagonal, I can track classes. Okay? If I'm looking at it on the diagonal, I can track classes going across there. So I'd encourage you to kind of dig around and look at some of that stuff like that. Any questions on any of that? I know we're moving fast. This is reading language arts. Just so you can see. This is science. As a former science teacher, I always hate to see the reds in there for that. You know, you can teach. You can help each other out. As a science teacher, I'm incorporating math in my science class. Whenever I taught genetics, genetics was all algebra. Man, I'm throwing out algebraic equations in there and that, and we're doing, like, I thought this was, it is, look at it, it's all the same thing. The whole FOIL thing you learned in Algebra 1, here's a great practical application of it. Okay? So using different things in their literature, reading, all the way across curriculums. This social studies. I'll tell you this, the social studies is changing this year. Social studies was pretty easy to meet because it was off of old benchmarks. The benchmarks have been updated this year, so social studies is actually going to be the whole four ranges: advanced, proficient, basic, below basic, whereas before, up until this year, was just the advanced, proficient, and basic. And if you were basic or proficient, I'm a simpleton, so they had a 2/3 chance of being advanced or proficient because there were only 3 choices. Now they got half a chance. So you're going to see some scores drop. The benchmarks are harder. The standards are a little harder. Okay, so be aware of that. If you've not looked at the new social studies standards, then you might want to add that to your list of hundreds of things to look at. This is just 7th grade math. And I'm showing this because we're going to go a little bit backwards here. So as I look, this is just a report, the district diagnostic report for 7th grade math. And I can see how my individual groups of students did. My lowest students up to my highest students. And what kind of growth is happening there. So as I look at this, what can you tell me about, and the blue is this year, the gold is previous years. What can you say about our growth at the different academic levels in 7th grade last year for math? Anyone? It may be too easy of a question. See, you guys are a lot smarter than me. I'm a simpleton, I'm saying, I'm looking at this saying, okay, blue, my lowest kids had growth. These kids had growth. Not as much growth. My highest kids, not near as much growth, but they still grew. And we did better than the year before. So let's figure out, here's one of the things we don't always do. What did we do different last year that allowed us to get that growth over the previous year? Let's repeat that, okay? Sometimes we try so many different things, we forget we may not know which one worked, and we forget what we did, all right? So go back and revisit with the faculty members at your school. What kinds of things we did? But these highest kids, you can get some great growth out of them, all right? One of the things I hear over and over again, Ms. Stookey, I teach all honors kids. I can't get growth out of the honors kids. They're already at the top. They're not, okay? They are not. 1 point. One question correct or incorrect off of what they're predicted to make can make or break you. I taught at this school for the last 5 years I was in the classroom. And back before I had a really good knowledge of what was going on with the advanced proficiency and growth and all that, somebody has got to keep me tracking on time because my watch went dead 2 weeks ago, which is not encouraging for you, I know. And I haven't talked at all today, so I'm just. So when I was in the classroom here, like I'm getting my kids advanced and proficient, And you know what? I heard this growth thing. It's like, you know, the kids that are coming in that I've personally targeted as off the initial quizzes and tests, they're at the lower end of their science knowledge. I'm going to really work with those guys and jack their scores up. You know, they are going to be biology all-stars by the time they get out of here. And I would do that, and everybody's advanced. Everybody's advanced. My growth, though, it just would just, it's like, oh, what's wrong? My growth always had me like as, it's like 50th percentile in the state. You're like the 50th percentile best biology teacher in the state, which really, because I thought I was the best, okay? And in my mind, I still want to believe it, all right? So what's going on, right? What's it?
You were the best teacher.
Thank you. Come on, Ross. There you go.
All the babies.
Yeah. Former students. Thank you very much. So, yeah, I was like, what's going on? Well, come to find out, after the fact, after I got out of the classroom, I was spending this great amount of time on these kids, and I was getting great growth out of them. All right? But I was missing these kids. Were they getting advanced? Yeah. Well, they should have got advanced. I could have missed all day, every day, and those kids would have got advanced. All right? Now, did I add to their knowledge base? I think so. All right? But they had enough tools where they could have gotten advanced with or without me. All right? Here's where I missed out on my growth. It's not a linear line. All right? Every question on the test is not worth the same number of scale points. And this is how the growth is figured out, by scale points. All right, so if a student is at the low end, okay, and the scale runs from 600 to 900, all right, and on most tests, 600, 900. So if they get one question right, they get 600 points. If they get 5 questions right, they get 600 points. If they get 10 questions right, 600 points. Now this is TCAP, all right, this is TCAP. If they get 11 questions right, 610 points, all right? If they get, I think it was 20 questions right, then they're up to like 650, 660. Then when you start to hit the middle of the scale, one question is worth 2 points, 2 or 3 points, all right? So the scale looks like this. And then it levels off, and then when you get to the upper end, there's only 60 questions on here. If they get all 60 of them right, 900 points. If they get 59 right, and nobody's projected to make 60 no matter what you hear. Well, they got perfect last year, I'm automatically doomed. No, nobody's predicted to make the 900, okay? If they get 59 right out of 60, 830 points on some tests, 70-point drop. All right? And remember, nobody's predicted to make. They realize this. So they're not saying, that kid's going to make, they made perfect last year, they better make perfect this year, otherwise you get negative 70. No. All right? They may be predicted to make 58 or 59. You get them to perfect, you get all those points. 58 questions right, 820, 815. So at the upper end, you can actually see some good growth if you can get that extra question or 2 correct for them. Not you can get them to get that extra question. Conversely, and here's what was my downfall, all the great gains I was making with those lower end kids, was being negated by the 2 or 3 upper end kids that I had that were missing a question here or there. Just cut me back, cut me back. Had I understood what was going on, I could have worked with those upper end kids a little bit more so that they can get, through the Think Link process, which we didn't give, or just natural formative assessments I was giving in the class, this is where this kid was missing this, I get him fixed. I just grabbed 35 points. 30, that's huge. That is huge. So think about your whole range of kids, okay? Don't just teach here, because you're going to lose all them, and they're valuable. Every kid's valuable, all right? So don't teach here, don't teach here. There's some debate as to whether just to teach here, but you better individualize for here and here. Right? The whole point is knowing your kids, knowing where they're strong, knowing where they're weak, and then fixing those up. Encouraging them where they're strong and shoring up where they're weak so you can help them out there. Okay? This is 6th grade. So the other one was 7th grade math. This is 6th grade math. Remember all red? Here's what it's all red. Okay? It's all below. These little whiskers here, that just has to do, those are degrees of freedom or standard deviation if you want to look at it that way. So standard deviation above, below. If the whisker crosses the midline 0, 1-year growth. 0, 1-year growth. If the whisker crosses that midline, all that's saying is you'll get a report back that says NDD, no discernible difference. So how could I have got them to 1-year growth and made no difference in them? It's just a stat term. It doesn't mean you didn't make a difference in that kid or their lives. I know you made a great difference in their lives, but if it crosses, the whisker crosses the 0 line, then they can't say with confidence one way or the other, is all that is. Here's 5th grade. So this brings in those reds and greens a little bit more, hopefully, to you. And 4th grade. All right. Now we can see, I show you this because you can see if a group or a school did poorly the year before, you can turn those things around. The year before, here's a great example. You're teaching the year before they just basically taught the middle and just barely did that. They lost the ends, all right? Last year they had it figured out a little better. Okay? All right, and this is a, yeah, that was the system. All right. Okay. This is an accelerant. So there's a place on the TVAAS site where you can look at reports, and this is an accelerant report. Okay? And this accelerant report is, it's a future academic performance report for Algebra 1. Right? And you can see from this that 28% of our students are projected to make advanced or proficient. Advanced in that. Okay? They're the likely ones to be advanced, 28%. 13% of our students are in what's called the Accelerate 2. Accelerate 2 has a 50 to 70% chance of being proficient or advanced. Okay? Accelerate 2 has a 50 to 70% chance. So when you look up the individual student predictions on the TVAAS site, you'll see this is their chance of being, their prediction of being proficient. If it's 50 to 70, they're an Accelerate 2. We only got 13%. Most of our kids, students are in Accelerate 1. They got a less than 50% chance of being proficient or advanced in Algebra 1. Okay? Does that mean that they're doomed to be basic or below basic? No, but it gives you a good idea what you're starting with and where you need to go. All right? And that's the way you need to look at that. All right. So that's just a quick accelerant.
Mr. Stookey,
Yes, sir.
when we've done a lot of this at Northside.
Sure.
And when you review for Algebra 1, for instance, and that last little bar that was up there says students who lack sufficient data.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, that number for us is like 36%. Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, that's really high. That's real high. Most of that has to do with they've not tested enough. They don't have enough test data on them. So they haven't tested 2-3 times in that subject area. But that's a high number for a high school. You might see that type of number here at Madison because they got a lot of students coming in from outside the system, haven't been in public school, they don't have that data on them. But for Northside, you guys, I don't know what your ESL population is.
I mean,
It's high,
relatively
so
high
you
compared to the system.
see a number of those kids popped into that, I'm sure. But you can on that site, what you can do,
I mean, no, it's not
Bryan.
that high, but it's
yeah,
relatively.
what you can do is, anything that's blue on the TVAAS site is clickable.
Yep,
So you could actually go in and, I could do this in my office tomorrow for if you want. I can click on that number, pull up Northside, click on that 38% where there's not enough data, and it'll pull up all those kids, and then we can better analyze what's going on there. Okay? But that's the cool thing about the TVAAS site. Anything that's blue is clickable, and you can go with it. This is a student report, or actually a list of students. So this is the Accelerate 1. Again, Accelerate 1 has what % chance of being proficient? Less than 50, right? And so you can see down in here where they are. If I click on the blue or the name, it will pull up an individual student report. And through the individual student reports, I can see all the different things that they've done in the past. At the end of the school year, maybe. At the end of the school year, you're going to get a report. This is a quick score, and it will it's a report like this. All the student names are over here, and it will tell you what grade they received on the test. It will not give you their scale score. All right, that comes in a different file. This just gives you their % grade. This is calculated by the state now. All right. So if I'm an EOC teacher, and this kid comes in my algebra class, they take the test, 85. 85 is his final exam. That's his final exam. EOCs are the final exam. Okay? And this student scored proficient. The proficient range is basically just a little below a B up to a 92. Advanced is 93 to 100. That's an A. Okay? And the advanced proficient scales kind of correlate with that. Basic is, in this case, I'm sorry, here's this particular thing, 84. This person probably made it 83 something. Okay? And you will see, and this will jam you up, so this is your education. Please hear me on this. You may see some kids with the same score. All right? There may be another kid on here with an 84 that's proficient. And this kid's an 84 in basic. How can they get the exact same score, but one be basic and one be proficient? This is rounded, okay? This is a percentile that's rounded off of the raw score. The student takes a test, they get a raw score. That raw score is converted into a scale score. Remember, 60 to 600, 900. That scale score has the advanced proficient range on it, okay? This is something different, so it's based off the raw score in a different way. So this is rounded. These are never rounded. It either is or isn't. So if you got an 84 that's proficient, they were probably a true 84, 84.2, 84.4. 84 that's basic was an 83 point whatever that rounded up to an 80. All right? That's that. You know, it would take, to go over all the stuff about data would take days. We don't have days. Thankfully. All right? I would say go to the Discovery Ed site for your ThinkLink stuff. If you don't teach a ThinkLink class, go there anyway. Because guess what? We are all in the boat together. You are in the boat with all the other teachers at your school. The evaluation composites, you got school-wide composites going on. Well, I teach this, I don't even teach one of those classes. Guess what? We are teaching across the curriculum. What are you getting your kids to read? What are you getting them to write in your class? Okay? So that's, yeah, scroll down. So, do different things, all right? This is a, yeah, that's it. I was gonna actually go to, well, like I said, I can talk to you about different, hang on. I told you I could go all day. I got one more minute, I think. So, please, if you've got questions, please ask. It is imperative, right here, it is imperative that you look at the data of your students and the data of your school. It is ridiculous for you not to. Get set up with a TVAAS account so that you can get on there. If you don't have an account, go to your principal and say, hey, I was just at this thing and that testing guy, I don't know what his name was, bow tie wearing fool. He said I need a TVAAS account. I'm going to look at the data. Can you give me an account so I can look at the data? And just keep badgering them until they get you one. Whether you want to look at the data or not, at least you look like you want to look at the data. But here's, let me share this with you. That's the first step. Get the username so you can see the data. I can pull up, and your principals have access to this too by their school, but I can pull up, I can look and see right now everybody that's logged into the TVAAS site over the last month. And how many times they did it. If your principal says, I need you to go to the TVAAS site and look at this stuff, do it. Okay? Now, not all know that where they can look and that, but look. And you guys are new. Learn, get a skill set, learn a skill set, and this is one of those skill sets that you can learn that makes you a very valuable commodity at your school and with the system, and your principal can recognize that and say, hey, this Chandler, he's all over this data stuff. I like that. He's going to go to him, not necessarily for more, give him more work to do. It's like, hey, help me understand this, or can you help this teacher with that or that? All right? Those are things that you grow in professionalism with. All right? So I'd encourage you to do those things. Sorry, Bryan, I went over, and I probably didn't cover anything. I apologize. Thank you.
No, thank you for coming out and sharing that. Just like Mr. Stookey said, if you have not been looking at this data, you need to. It is valuable information. It will tell you many things about what's going on in your school, in your classroom, to help you make informed decisions. And that's what the data is there for. And that's where the power lies in the data. Is what do I do next? When you have that question, what do I need to do next? Oftentimes you can find that information right there if you look at those numbers. Another thing that he said that I heard was really powerful. When it comes time for the actual testing, follow your testing coordinator. When they tell you to do something, do that. Because just like he mentioned where we had one school that lost some data, you don't want to be that teacher that causes your school to have grades nullified. That you don't want to be in that position.
We had a high school, another high school last year. Every person that took Algebra 2 last fall for this high school, their grades were nullified. Their scores were nullified.
That's not
all right,
good.
because of an irregularity that should never have happened. All right? So just be aware.
Be aware.
Every year, teachers across the state, I'm sorry, Bryan, every year, teachers across the state get their license withdrawn by, not by me, not by the State Board of, or the State Department, but by lawyers with the State Board of Education because of testing improprieties that have happened. All right? And they usually end up being some type of malicious thing, but you need to be very aware that not just a reprimand, but there are teachers that lose their license. How many of you are getting a teaching job without a teaching license? You might go to a private school or something. All right? Well, you don't want to lose your license.
It's important, so please pay attention. Remember, if you have colleagues that may have, for whatever reason, they were coaching a sport, they were sick today, remember, we get a lot of questions about makeup. Remember, the makeup sessions are the following board work session night. So this workshop will be replayed at the next work session board night. Those are usually on Monday nights, but also Julia Pope will send out an email. If you're not getting an email from Julia Pope about reminders about new teacher workshops, then you need to email Julia Pope and say, hey, I'm not getting those emails, because she built that that contact list based upon each time she gets these forms. So if she was unable to read your email, or you didn't put your email, or you didn't put your name on there, then she doesn't have you in her contact list. So if you're not getting those, then make sure you email Julia Pope and say, hey, you need to add my name to that list, and here it is, because if we have a change, or if we have something that is different, we will email you, just like today's topic changed, and we emailed you that. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, can you clarify when the makeup is? I had a colleague that wasn't able to come due to illness. When do I tell him this?
The makeups are always the next board work session night.
I don't know what that means.
Well, that's on it's on the calendar, it's on the website. That information is public knowledge. It's published many places. When the next board session, that's the school board.
Board session meeting.
The school board meets. They have a work session night, they have a board meeting night. The makeup is always on the night that they have the board work session. It's always published on the Jackson-Madison County website. It's published in the paper, many places, but the website is where you can always find it.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. If you came in late and you were not able to sign in, make sure that you sign in, because you will have, remember, you have to attend all of these, so we don't want you to have to go to extra ones at the end of the school year because you don't have all of your dates, so please make sure that you sign in. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.
Have a good one.
And it was the worst 2 days ever.
Yeah, and that's all really maximum, but like,
I hope that answers. Thank y'all for giving me that.
Okay, I'm sorry, this is like my favorite picture right here. Yeah, that's a type of class, sorry.
You got signed in, right?
Got a camera?
I won't see none of them.
I just get his phone.
He and she will print it
Because it's on here. His mom's here.
out. But I do remember that email.
Oh, he cuts his hair. Okay, like me or my hair. But he can't, he had a full beard when I first met him. He done cut off. Sorry.
Yeah. She's your instructor, plus you go to her and say, here.
You need to make a section out, and you need to make a
Where
call.
they are.
Just like I tell them, real easy process, this one video camera.
And that is help you as in your class. as you work
What we need to do is set up a time. Come up with this law, bill everything you're doing. So it'll be after 3:30. Just, get text me, or Julia Pope, and if they make up a time, we'll get a time, you come in. Plug it all up for you, get you going, and make it.
Well, sure, you're gonna see some.
Because he was kind of in a really awkward position. And he
We're singing with all that, so no big deal, we can get that session made up. They're all logged in.
They was locked out.
So I don't have standards that.
You call, even spur of the moment, you call and say, hey, I'm coming up today, is Bryan, I just need to be there because I'm on.
Because I found myself going backwards on the whiteboard.
Although I
I'm
might
like,
show
oh,
Julia.
yeah, okay, remember
That's
how,
a great.
how you divide?
It's
Remember
great
you
that
put
you
your
recognize that because as you go, it's like, oh, these are fine.
Yeah, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, we'll get that taken care of. It's very, very easy process.
Involves putting it in like my fourth grader.
No, you can't. Come on.
I just emailed his teacher and asked him.
The CRA, the way it works now, the CRA is a construction responsive. Right, so the way that that is going to be in the future
Is the way we learn.
is
yeah.
you show your work. You don't have to do it this way or that way. This is the process.
Yeah, we'll, I know
I don't know where I'm gonna get it.
I know that
It's
your work is, you know, if I said.
There's not anything.
Inform me that this is not the class that that's for English
Yeah,
class.
we'll work.
Oh, well,
And
no.
I say, and I'm like,
Now
thinking, I
you
wanted
let
to
them
say,
know.
are you not doing this in every class, including PE?
You just let them know, you just, you're gonna, this is.
Well, I did, but
It's a
they.
thing, and then you get back.